So why do dismissive avoidants fear vulnerability so much? Why do they fear emotional intimacy? Reality is, they actually crave it deep down at their core. They want love, they want connection, they want the intimacy. But when they get it, it triggers them and they run for the hills. So why do they fear it? The answer goes back to their childhood. This is a person that received consistent childhood emotional neglect, usually growing up in households where you don't talk about feelings. Their basic needs were met: clothing, food, shelter. But they were not given the emotional nurturing. Their emotional needs weren't met. They were not shown love and affection in the way that they needed. They were never shown how to process emotions. They were never shown how to deal with stress or life stress in general. Their feelings were routinely dismissed, if not outright rejected, reprimanded. Your emotions aren't welcome here. The message was sent loud and clear. If you're sad, go be sad in your room. Children are meant to be seen and not heard. They often had a parent that was excessively controlling with high expectations. They were only given that love and affection based on achievement. You got good grades, now you get some affection. You hit the winning home run, now you get some affection. But they felt like they could never really meet those expectations, and their parents were very controlling, but not in a nurturing way, smothering. So fast forward to being an adult. This is a person that personalized that lack of love that they received. They grew up to feel like there's something wrong with them, that they must be defective, like they're worthless and not lovable. They put up these walls around their heart because their fear, and this fear is usually in the subconscious, but sometimes they're consciously aware of it. The fear is, if I let down my walls, my partner is going to figure me out. I'm going to be exposed as being defective, worthless, and unlovable. So they seek to create emotional distance between themselves and their partner because this prevents their partner from figuring out that they are defective and worthless in their own mind. So they subconsciously feel driven to do things to create emotional distance. Various different distancing behaviors: taking space, not communicating, ghosting, pushing this person away emotionally, working excessive hours to, sever that intimacy because they prioritize other things over their partner. Even doing behaviors like cheating because it's really hard to be emotionally intimate with the person that you're actively betraying. All these distancing behaviors are things that they feel compelled to do, but often don't understand why. And the reason why they don't understand why is due to a lack of self-reflection, due to that core wound of defectiveness. Because self-reflection is the opposite of avoiding. They had to figure out how to deal with emotions on their own, so what they learned to do is avoid. When you self-reflect, though, you have to process emotions, not suppress them. You have to see where you've gone right, where you've gone wrong, take accountability, see how you can do better the next time. But in the dismissive avoidance mind, if they acknowledge they did something wrong, it confirms their own inner defectiveness. See, I did this wrong because I'm defective, because I'm worthless, because I'm not lovable. It's too painful. So they look to blame external things for their fears and behaviors. That way they get to avoid self-reflection and avoid accountability. But because they avoid self-reflection, they really don't understand their own emotions, and they have difficulty understanding why they feel the way they do because they don't reflect on it. They don't think about it. They suppress it and try to avoid it, but they still act out on it. Another reason why they fear vulnerability and intimacy so much is that they associate it with losing their independence. Because their parents were smothering and controlling. So they learned to associate emotional closeness with losing your independence, with getting smothered and controlled. So when a relationship is growing closer, well, they fear that they're going to get exposed as worthless and lose their independence. So they'll lose their independence, they'll lose their autonomy to a person that is ultimately going to abandon and reject them. And then they'll have lost their independence, they won't be able to take care of themselves, and they'll just go splat. That's the fear. And it all really ties into their deepest fear, which is the fear of abandonment. because they really do associate emotional closeness and commitment with abandonment. Because if you get vulnerable, you get rejected and abandoned. If you communicate, you get rejected and abandoned. And then you'll lose your independence and get rejected and abandoned. These are deeply, deeply driven fears, and the way that they've learned to deal with it is to not deal with it, to avoid it, to just suppress, suppress, suppress. However, this is a person, due to their low self-esteem and lack of self-worth, that really needs that external validation to feel better about themselves. The thing is, they just feel comfortable with it at a surface level. Surface level validation and attention gives them that dopamine rush, and that dopamine, the feel-good, happy, feel-good hormone, it helps numb and suppress any pain and the painful emotions that they don't want to face. It's not that you did anything wrong if you got pushed away by or discarded by a dismissive avoidant. They are specifically triggered by healthy relationship behaviors, emotional intimacy, disagreements, and expectations. And those are not your fault. You were not there in their childhood causing those attachment wounds. So if you were a consistent, loving, healthy partner to them, and you really showed up as your best self and they still pushed you away, it's because of their own insecurities, their own fears, their own lack of self-awareness, as well as their own character, because these behaviors are choices. But vulnerability gives them so much anxiety that they feel like they can't even function. And that's not your fault.